Good morning, Mr. Court. Thank you for accepting the interview invitation. I'm aware that you do own an electric car, so let me just start by asking you, how was your experience with your petrol or diesel car before you owned your electric car?
Okay, so we've owned diesel cars a lot. In fact, I've had diesel cars since the 1970s. I'm an old chap and I go back a long way. But on the other hand, I've also worked on electric vehicles. And in the 1970s and 80s, I was working on industrial electric vehicles, fork trucks and tractors and so on. So I was very keen then to run electric vehicles, but at that time, the only electric vehicles on the road had got very poor performance, and they were converted cars rather than ones that were built for electric.
Yeah, and also these are the steps. This is like the first steps that you take to becoming someone who owns an electric car, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what made you what was the sort of spark that made you make the switch to an electric car?
Well, as I say, the spark was there in the 70s. I really wanted to make this switch a long time ago, and I think that we should have been making that switch. But the thing that's really held it up has been battery technology, and fairly recent developments in battery technology are the thing that are driving electric cars into the forefront now, because when they first came out, an electric car could do 50 miles an hour and a maximum range of 50 miles, which was pretty useless. They had lead acid batteries, which were quite dangerous. So they weren't very practical, and not many people ran electric cars. And now that we've got lithium batteries, which is the sort of offshoot of phone technology, really, we developed these lithium batteries. And actually, that's where all the advancement in electric cars will be, with the battery technology. So now we've got some decent batteries, we've got some decent performance on our cars. And so the one that we just bought, which is a Renault, does 250 miles range, and it's got a top speed of just under 90. So it's a very practical car.
Yeah, that's good. And I would have actually made the same choice. I'd have waited for the technology to become even better, and when it's just right, I would make the change.
Yeah. I mean, the motor technology hasn't really improved. It didn't really need to. And the control technologies improved slightly. The thing, of course, that everybody's concerned about, or everybody should be concerned about, and I know you are, is the environment. And so that is one big reason for us. I grew up in a time when in cities, children playing in playgrounds would be inhaling fumes from cars. And because of that, I think we've got a lot more cases of asthma.
Yeah.
And until we get rid of the old internal combustion engines that are producing particulates, what they call particulates, we're going to carry on with asthma. And if we can clean up the environment, it's a healthier place for people like you to live in.
Yeah, asthma is one of those diseases that come from these emissions, along with diseases also like COPD.
Yeah.
So for the next question, are there any drawbacks of an electric car that you have now?
Well, the drawback that everybody is suffering really is the fact that there aren't enough chargers. And this is a difficulty because, if you run a petrol or diesel car, you just run into one of the garages, fill up in seconds, well, minutes, and off you go again. And you could drive 300, 400, 500, 600 miles easily on a petrol car, just from a quick 5 minutes in the garage filling up with petrol or diesel.
Yeah.
But electric cars take longer to charge.
Yeah.
At best, they charge in 20 minutes. That's a quick charge, and that's not very good for your battery, actually. Or ideally, they charge overnight. So some people, it would be a disadvantage, because if you were driving around all day and you wanted to do 300 miles, it would be a push on most electric cars at the moment to do that. You do 200, but then you think, well, I need to charge it somewhere. And if you go to a garage, most of them haven't got electric chargers. If you go to motorway services, they do, but they don't work. If you go and park in the local car park, and the councils are putting more electric chargers in, even those don't work because they're overused. There just aren't enough chargers. And so the best way, and what we decided to do, was put our charger at home, and we've actually got our own charger unit.
Yeah.
That cost about £600.
Yeah.
Okay.
That actually is going to change, and that's actually going to save you a lot of money in the future.
It is going to save us a lot of money. We can plug into it at night. It can be charged up at night when the electricity is cheaper anyhow.
Yeah.
So that's good. And the battery, I mean, I don't know if you saw the program on ITV last night about batteries. It might come a point where we can actually run our homes from the batteries that we run in our electric cars. So the demand on the national grid will reduce. We can produce our own electricity with solar panels and so on. So there are ways that we could actually be almost self-sufficient for some of us with electricity. So it's good stuff, but unfortunately, it isn't for everyone.
Yeah. And so luckily, because of innovation these days, this technology of electric cars will evolve. It will become even more practical and even more convenient, as you said before. And that's a good thing, because so it can be used by more people. Because like with electric cars, people might not think much of them, but the technology will evolve. That's the truth.
Yeah. So it's good for certain people at the moment, and it's not practical for others, because not everybody can have a charger fitted to their house. You know, because they live in the middle of a city and they don't have their own parking space and things. So it is difficult for some people. And as I say, with the range improving, that's better. One of the other things I think for a big advantage of electric cars, of course, if you go to a city like London, they are charging now. They're trying to reduce the pollution in central London. And so there's a charge that they make on all vehicles that are not electric or part electric of £12.50 a day. So if you drive your petrol car into London, it's going to cost you £12.50. Also, it's going to cost you £15 for a congestion charge. So it's £27. And in an electric car, it's all perfectly free.
Wow.
So, you know, if you're popping up to London, and as I say, an electric car will do that easily for you, you can go right through central London, and there is no charge. Well, excuse the pun. Yes, there's no financial charge. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so that's because right now we need incentives, and this is definitely a good incentive, because as prices go lower, obviously the people will start favouring these electric cars.
Yeah. The price of electric cars at the moment is high, so disadvantages. The batteries are very expensive, and obviously the more we use and the more we develop batteries, the price will come down. It'll probably take about 3 or 4 years. Batteries have improved, but they are expensive. This is a big problem. But we actually lease our car. I don't know if you're familiar with lease rather than purchase. So basically, you just pay so much each month to have the car, and at the end of 3 years or whatever period, it goes back. But it's a very nice way of running the latest technology, having a new car, and saving the planet. So leasing electric cars is a terrific way for all of us to go.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So yes, if I talk about emissions, as you pointed out, these particulate emissions, there's also lower energy, because most electric cars don't have the power of their petrol equivalents. And if we're running lower energy vehicles, it means that we're not using as much energy, but also we're not wasting as much energy, because petrol cars waste huge amounts of energy. They are about 30% efficient in converting petrol into power, useful power, whereas electric motors are 90%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's such a
more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, it's an obvious thing to do. Going electric is totally obvious. It's not really a decision, it's a logical progression.
Yeah, it's a logical decision. Yeah,
it is a logical decision. Yeah. And I think the other thing that people don't talk about is if more people get involved with electric vehicles, they'll be more conscientious of the environment and think, you know, I've made a move that is keeping the environment clean. Perhaps I'm going to recycle more. You know, perhaps I'm going to walk more. Perhaps actually I'll use public transport a bit as well. Public transport's going to change a lot in the next few years. And I'm sure you know about autonomous vehicles. And electric autonomous vehicles are another obvious step. And the college is also working with Reading buses now and looking at the whole transport system.
Yeah, because also that actually brings me to my next question. So how does an electric car save the environment?
We said about the emissions. That's terrific because we won't be getting a lot of health problems.
Yeah.
A cleaner environment is good for all of us. I mentioned about lower energy, and I then mentioned about the fact that people will start to realise that working with the environment is a better way than just polluting it.
Yeah, working against it. Working with it, obviously better.
Yeah.
Because if we keep on using petrol or diesel cars, we're only just harming ourselves, like as a species.
Oh yeah. I mean, the big difficulty, of course, is making the move and persuading others to do it as well. And I think, you know, we mentioned about legislation. The government does financial incentives for electric cars at the moment, slightly. But, you know, should we trade with other countries that do not make any attempt to use a cleaner fuel or cleaner energy? And perhaps there might be tariffs on countries in the future so that if we buy from them, a bit like organic produce, you know, we realise that food production would be better organically, and we currently have that choice. But I think we need to have some international standards on. We have international standards on emissions, but also we need to allow tariffs on countries that basically don't care about their environment, countries that produce things that cause vast amounts of pollution.
Yeah.
It's difficult because it's generally going to mean higher prices. But if you look at the cost of health, how many people go to the national health because they've got asthma, COPD, and everything else, which is partly because of, you know, because of pollution.
Yeah, and it is, and also animals. This problem is also starting to indirectly, but it is starting to affect animals. Like for example, if an animal lives in ice, then because obviously the ice is melting, the ice is melting, so they won't have a home to live.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, global warming, pollutants in water and the land we end up eating. It comes back to us. We know about plastics and so on. That's one that's been on the TV. But all these other heavy metals that are used in internal combustion engines and other industries come back into our system eventually when we eat the food that's grazed the land. Yeah.
Just to give you a scale of this entire whole thing, about 31.1 million of all cars on the roads of the UK are either petrol or diesel. And this is out of 31.8 million cars.
Yeah.
So that means that it's 98% of all cars in the UK are petrol or diesel.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
I share that.
Yeah.
And imagine even if only half the number of people, if they make the switch, then imagine the difference it will make.
Yeah, and I'm very impressed, you know, by your determination. It's people like you that are the future, and yeah, I'm very excited about this.
Thank you.
It's a great big thing that you need to tackle, and electric cars are definitely a very easy way to start. So I would say make the switch now.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time today. It's been definitely a great pleasure talking to you. I'm sure that most people will make the change sometime soon.